Hey again, everybody. We're here again to talk about another pattern, and we're going to talk about the Superwoman and the Superman pattern. Now, I just want to start it by saying that this is a pattern that, particularly in our experience, has pertained to women, and I want to explain it a little bit. So, the Superwoman and the Superman pattern is largely made up of two different roles. So, if you think about the woman that has largely the caretaker role as a mother, and but also works full time or has a career or has a business, and then does everything in between, has to fit in life and sport and any other commitments that they have. You can see that because of societal roles over time, that this is largely a female pattern. It's pertained to a lot of women being a superwoman, but as we can see in society today, there's a lot of men and roles are shifting. So you can see that it's definitely a pattern that can pertain to the Superman as well, because we've got a lot of fathers that are staying home and taking on, a multiplicity of roles as well. But just for the sake of today, I'm just going to use a female as an example, but it's absolutely not gender specific. So it's the Superwoman pattern. So like I said, the Superwoman pattern is the woman that does it all. She's the woman that that has the business and has children and has a family and does all the commitments in between. And a lot of the time I'm thinking of a client that I've worked with for a really long time that really has this pattern strongly. And one of the things about this woman is that there's really a sense of duty, and there's a sense of obligation, and there's a really, really strongly held belief system. And we were talking about it earlier, and it's that sense of responsibility that she has in her life. And she feels absolutely obligated to keep all of those responsibilities. So as you can imagine, with my client and with people that experience this pattern, there's a real exhaustion and a tired, and there's none of their needs being met at all. So they're going throughout their day doing all these different roles, and there's absolutely no needs and no wants being met outside of the duty and the obligation. So for business owners that have this, there's no real sense of balance. There's no real sense. I know that, again, with these women that have the family, there's no sense of being present with their family, which is something that's so important to them. There's no sense of going home to the family and just being able to put the mobile down, or, step away from the laptop and be present with the family. And then when they're in the business, there's a real sense of guilt and shame that they should be with their family more. And there's a real, to me, in the clients that I've worked with and I've experienced, this sense of guilt pervades a lot of the areas of their life, and a lot of shame around doing all these different areas of their life, even though there's such a sense of responsibility. So there's just absolutely no way for them to balance their lives between this sense of duty, obligation, and responsibility, and what they actually want to create, as in terms of what do they want for themselves. It's really all about the external, and it's all about everybody else.
It's interesting because you're quite right. It's all about making sure that these roles and responsibilities are done for the staff and for the team, and get the marketing done and get this done, and then I rush home, I've got to get this for my partner, and got to get the dinner on, and then I've got to get this for the children. And so you can see just pulled in those three completely different directions, and often not being able to do any of those roles extremely well, and then feeling guilty about that. And really important from a business perspective, from a life perspective, because you said something so important, Gab. This Superwoman and Superman pattern always leads to fatigue. It always leads to burnout. It always leads to depressed feelings or flat feelings. Always. Now, it also always undermines a person's ability to build a business, because their decision-making capacities are lowered, because they're always feeling the stress. They're rushing to do this and rushing to do that and rushing to do this. So it's an absolutely important pattern from a business perspective and from a personal perspective, and important because Gab said it. Women usually will cop it more than men. Men do have it, by the way, as Gab's mentioned. But because of some of the roles that women have taken on and been conditioned to take on. The other thing I want to quickly say is there's often a perfectionist involved in it. They want to be the perfect boss. They want to be perfect to their manager. They want to be perfect in the way they relate to their accountant. They want to have, there's a real sense of, I've got to turn up and be there for this person and do that for this person. Then they want to be the perfect mum. And they want to be the perfect wife or the perfect husband when we come back to Superman pattern. Very important one to address. Georgina, what's your take on the Superwoman and Superman pattern?
Yeah, definitely. We all want to be the best we can be because there are intrinsic rewards that we get. We get excitement and we feel good about ourselves when we're doing well at something that we're putting our time into. But when we're looking at a myriad of things, and we've got so many different roles and tasks to complete, we can't be everything to everyone. So we're actually not feeling good enough in response to any one particular thing. So that plays on our self-esteem. And when you talked about the perfectionist, I think, the achiever is also coming in there really wanting to be able to say, yes, I've done this and I've done this to the standard that I usually do. And when you've got so many different aspects of your life that you are called upon to work in, and you're not given that balance, you're not having that balance inside of yourself, you're just going to start to have those parts that come up and don't give you the intrinsic satisfaction, which leads to a downward spiral of, not being good enough, depression, as you said, flatness, and so on. And one thing I think is important to recognize when we're talking about women in particular is that I worked with a client just the other day who is quite a creative woman, and her means of making money is through her art. And yet, and she has this partner who's actually very successful in business and wants her to be able to utilize her time to work in her business. But there's this feminist part of her from society that says, oh no, I have to do it myself because I have to pull my weight. And so there's these unreasonable expectations that the woman is going to run the business, run the household, run the kids around, be there as that wonderful, if they've got a male partner, wonderful sex goddess, to satisfy him as well as themselves.
No wonder they're burnt out. Jeez.
Yes. So one of the things that's always key in what Gab said at the beginning is this whole societal thing where, a lot of women have had to have seen the equality and the women's liberation movement come up through the 70s and 80s, but a lot of people have bought into that without really knowing what it is that they really want. So there's these expectations, and so the Superwoman just has become expected or the norm, and yet there's no role models to show that it's actually a successful way of moving.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting what you've said. You actually brought a context that I've not thought about before. The first thing that I sort of wanted to say too, based on what you was just communicated, is it comes to mind that they're really hard on themselves. So that anyone with this pattern is going to be really, really hard on themselves when they're not perfect in those three roles. The mother, the wife or partner, and
Perry, it's all about the shoulds.
Yeah, the shoulds.
Just as you talk about, I should be able to do it all.
Yeah, that's right. And so when they can't, and they won't because they'll break down, they just give themselves a hard time when they can't meet those shoulds. And the other thing that I found interesting about what you've just said, Georgina, I hadn't really thought about that. It's quite fascinating. So, one of the great things that feminism have brought to the Western world in particular is this ability for women to step out of those old roles from a patriarchal society and go, you know what, we can go out and we can be empowered, and we can go build our own financial lives, and we can go out and carve careers like men do. But there's still remnants of you know, the old conditioning, but I've still got to be the housewife at home, because there's a lot of stats that businesswomen will still do, you know, 90% of the housework, where businessmen don't. So you can see, yes, feminism supported that, but they're trying to be perfect in the new role, the empowered woman, and perfect in the old roles. Just quickly in closing, actually before we go to a close, you said something before, Gab. So they'll feel guilty about meeting their needs. So as an example, going for a walk on the beach, going to the gym, they might feel guilty because they're not doing the shoulds for others. So there's a people-pleasing aspect to this too, I've just realised. Yep. We've got to keep everyone happy with us. We can't let anyone down. In closing, anyone want to finish off with this? I want to bring something like a solution. If anyone else hasn't, just anyone got anything else in closing?
Go ahead.
For me, a lot of this pattern is about helping the client really see it and really understand the shoulds, the guilt about not addressing the shoulds, and really looking at the long-term ramifications of not addressing this pattern. And then specifically, you work smart to in how you run your life and you run your business. So when I'm working with someone in this situation, we work to set their business up so that it's less impactful on them. So they really are working as the entrepreneur, and all other tasks and roles are delegated to others. That frees up their time. Usually you work harder while you're getting to that point. That might be 3, 4, 6 months. Then they can step back to the business from the business. The business is running without them or with less input from them. And then, of course, they've got more time to spend doing things that they love for themselves. And they're more likely to be better as mothers and partners and able to fulfill those roles. But you just can't be perfect in all those roles. So as a business owner, you work to free yourself up so that you can put more time into being a mother, if that's what's important to you, or a father, if that's what's important to you. It is to me. One of the reasons I want to be in business is so I can be with my
I'll just
family.
add. Yep. Sorry, Greg. Yeah, I'm just going to add to it by saying, you know, one of the other things that is important for someone with this pattern is to recognize that the more they're able to get that balance in their life and focus on their business and be profitable, then they can start to farm out a lot of these other roles, cleaning, you know, have someone come in and make meals or whatever that you know is a part of their life, but it doesn't make them, if they're not really excited about cooking, or, you know, if it's not a passion of theirs, then it just gives them that break, but the need still gets met. They're still contributing. You know, communication around this Superwoman or Superman pattern is key. Communicating with oneself and knowing what it is that is really important, and then communicating it with others around you to get the support you need.
Yeah.
I'd actually, if I can just close before we close with an example. I've worked with a client for about 18 months, and she has had this pattern so strongly. And just a really quick example of how dominant this pattern is. She's at a point in her business now where we've got her to a point where she's got financial freedom pretty much, but there was still this Superwoman pattern running her life that she wouldn't hand over any other the responsibility to anyone else. So she wouldn't get a cleaner, and she wouldn't get a PA that she desperately needs because she wasn't willing, you know, that she should be able to clean her house and she should be able to, you know, do all the office work. When, you know, I was trying to tell her, they're $30 an hour, whereas you're making $250 an hour. It didn't register in her mind because I should be able to do this, and that would free up all her mind space to be strategic and do other things in her business. And then on the other side, you know, she's had her boys home full time for the last 5 or 6 years, and didn't want to they were driving her a bit crazy because they're going to school next year, and she was resistant against putting them in school an extra day a week because she should be able to clean and she should be able to do the office work and she should be able to look after her 2 boys without going slightly mental. And so we finally got her to the point in the last couple of weeks where she's put her boys in an extra day of school. And what's happened is she's now got time to, when the kids are home, she's such a better mum, and she's enjoying them and she's enjoying life. And because she's getting her needs met and being able to do things, she's now better in the business as well because she's got that little bit more space to actually do the things that she wants to do. Yeah, it really does make a difference when you can step back on the responsibility. You become the great, you know, as good as you can be wife, you know, that you want to be, and mother, because you're giving yourself what you need as well as what they need.
Yeah, I was, when Georgina was saying, you know, about getting the home help and getting someone to help with the cooking and things like that, I was thinking to myself, it's like someone with this pattern, as a coach, you'd have to work with them so strongly because of that should do. What do you mean? I should be able to run my business and be Superwoman and come home and get the house clean. I should do. I'm not a perfect woman if I don't. Yeah, it's classic.
Exactly. That's funny because as well that you can see right just in that last couple of comments where that may not, well, in a lot of cases, men would never have that dilemma.
Correct. That's why.
They'd order in or they would have someone clean, or they would leave the house and they wouldn't care whether it was messy because it's not part of what is culturally expected from the masculine.
Exactly. That's why this pattern, men have it as well, but women or business owners tend to have it extremely strongly. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.